Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. One of the things I think is going to be very important for at least people like me, media types, and people who do Browns media, and even some Browns fans during training camp, is we're going to have to develop a good sense of whether somebody is just trying to gas up Shedeur or gas up how well he's playing in camp or something like that, just to kind of get the value you can get out of saying that on the internet. Because, you know, it's no secret. If you want to get a video that's going to do well on the internet, say right now, Shedeur Sanders is making people's minds blow at training camp or something like that. And you're going to get a video that's going to do well on the internet. So there's a lot of incentive for people to come in and present that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the next greatest thing. And anybody who doesn't think that is a hater. There is a large financial incentive to just make that seem like the case. So in a situation like this, where there is an incentive either to say that a player is really good, like it was with Shedeur, like it is right now with Shedeur, that might flip at any given moment, right? Or we've lived through times where the incentive has been to say anything negative, and that's been about Deshaun Watson at times, where like there was such a large media incentive to just go out there on the internet and say Deshaun Watson's the worst quarterback you've ever seen, even before he was the worst quarterback you've ever seen, right? People were saying this in like 2023 when I thought Deshaun Watson was quite okay as the starting quarterback. 2024, I think he was one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. But 2023, I think you can make the argument that he was decent. And we've lived through both of these, right? And what I want to try to do is make sure that my antennas are always up in listening to folks, in listening to how they're hyping up or, ratcheting up negative sentiment versus somebody on the Browns, whether it be positive or negative. If this is like genuine, and also if this is more than just hype to feed the machine. The most recent person who has been feeding the Shedeur machine has been Dan Orlovsky. Now, Dan Orlovsky is not one of these people at ESPN that I just find to be not credible about a lot of stuff, right? I think Dan Orlovsky does have a lot of credibility, especially for somebody at that network, where credibility is kind of not the point of ESPN, right? Entertainment is the point of ESPN. Perk's not on all these shows because Kendrick Perkins is incredibly credible. He's there because people find him entertaining and what he says to be entertaining. So Dan Orlovsky is one of these people at ESPN that does have some credibility. So if Dan's getting excited about something, it does make me pay attention a little bit more. Now, Dan has his faults as an analyst, in my opinion. I think he tends to kind of fall in love too quickly with young quarterbacks. I think he can kind of be fast on that. But let's listen to what Dan is saying about Shedeur Sanders and try to determine whether this is just hype to feed the hype machine, or if this is something that can benefit Shedeur in the long run.
Of the draft, what is your sense right now of Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland?
Is the chatter real? And that's my question. And can you make Cleveland and Andrew Berry, the GM, and Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, say, why not? You've heard a lot of reports from a lot of different people, like, man, Shedeur looks really good in this OTA or really good at that OTA, or he's commanding the offense. And now you're going into minicamp. Can Shedeur continue that positive chatter, if it's real, and get that organization to sit back and say, you know what? Why not start him? Why not see what he has this year? Because either you figure out who your starter is moving forward, or you weaponize those 2 first-round picks in Cleveland for the 26th draft.
Well, so look.
So the main narrative, and I think Dan hits on this right, is for the Cleveland Browns, the main narrative is, can the Browns figure out what their future is at quarterback, whether it be the 2026 draft or whether it be with something already on the roster, right? Now, a lot about this narrative is going to be independent of whatever Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders does, because let's say the Browns get a top 3 pick, whether it be via Jacksonville or their own record, and that top 3 pick nets you a quarterback prospect who many believe has MVP-like potential, right? So you end up in a situation like 2 years ago where Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Caleb Williams are the top 3 quarterbacks, and you have one of those picks. You wouldn't pass on Jaden Daniels just because you thought you saw something good from one of these rookies. Because by drafting these guys in the mid to late rounds, both Dylan and Shedeur, the Browns are basically saying, hey, we don't think they have that kind of potential. Or else if they thought that Shedeur or Dylan had MVP-like potential, they would have taken them in the first or second round, right? They probably would have took them number 2 overall. Are at a very natural place with the discourse with Shedeur Sanders, which is, hey, if he looks good, you have nobody else on the roster, I see no problem with starting him day one. I want to approach that question from a different perspective because I am somebody who thinks of the 4 quarterbacks that the Browns have on the roster, I do think Shedeur has the best potential, has the best chance to reach that potential, and is not 40 years old, right? And the way I want to approach this question is, if Shedeur Sanders does show that he's ready or shows that he can be somebody who gives you a chance to give you a starting quarterback in the NFL, is that something you want to rush just so you can put him out there week 1? Like, the more potential Shedeur shows, is there not more incentive to make sure that he's ready before you put him out there? Like Dylan Gabriel, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care when Dylan Gabriel plays because I don't have high hopes for Dylan Gabriel. So you throw him out there week 1, he gets blown away. I ain't going to have too many lingering questions about Dylan Gabriel because I'm already not there with him. But if I did have more belief in Dylan Gabriel, I would want to be more selective about when he plays. The same thing is true with Shedeur. And right now, we're at the point where people want him to be the starting quarterback. But my question is like, hey, the better he looks, shouldn't you want to be more protective of Shedeur Sanders? Shouldn't you want to make sure you're putting him in the best possible environments to succeed? And is throwing him out there week 1, is that the best possible environment for Shedeur Sanders to succeed? I'm not sure. I don't see the rush. I know a lot of people just want to see him out there, want to be proven right about whatever pre-draft Shedeur take they had, right? And I think that's why people want him out there to a certain extent. I think also some people just want hope at the quarterback position, and they want it now, not later. I get it. But I see no reason to rush. The better he looks, the more I'm like, take your time. Take your time. Because the truth is, the Browns' decision to draft a quarterback next year is going to have less to do about the on-field results of what they see with Shedeur and more about how they feel internally about Shedeur Sanders, how they feel internally about the 2026 draft class, and where the Browns draft picks fall. How Shedeur plays next year, he could put up great numbers and the Browns see some major red flags with him that makes them not want to commit to him and draft somebody else instead. He could put up horrific numbers and the Browns see enough out of him behind the scenes to say, hey, no, we're going to stick with him. Like, the decision is not going to be made purely based on what we see on Sundays. That's oftentimes not how these decisions with quarterbacks are made. These decisions are often made about how they feel about this guy living up to the role of leadership and his willingness to get better. And if they feel good about those things and that player's ability to reach that potential, then they're going to be more willing to live with some of the ups and downs of a rookie quarterback. And they're going to be more protective of that rookie quarterback. They're not going to want to put that quarterback in a situation where he could get benched. If you start Shedeur week 1, a lot of people will be behind it the first couple of weeks, but if he starts to look like a rookie too soon, and that's going to lead to an environment where people are going to want to see what Dylan Gabriel has. People are going to want to see what Joe Flacco has, right? I'd rather put Shedeur in a situation where you've already seen a Joe Flacco. There's no reason to see him again. You've already seen Dylan Gabriel. There's no reason to see him again. All right, let's have Shedeur Sanders play and let's ride it out. Right? Good, bad, and different. We're going to let this roll, right? If Kenny Pickett's on the roster, throw him into the pile of quarterbacks. You've already seen him. You don't have to see him again. Like, let Shedeur be the last guy to start so that we don't have any, curiosity to see anybody else for the rest of the season, and that we are all 100% on the Shedeur train once that time comes. If we rush it, then I think it could be a little bit more messy. I also think you lead to a situation where certain guys in the locker room feel like the team could have been better if you started Joe Flacco. Let everybody be on the same page. Like, the more potential you see in Shedeur Sanders, the more and more you should want the time you insert him to be strategic, because you want everybody to be on the same page about the kid's development when you put him in there. I don't think we're thinking about that nearly enough right now. I think we're just like, oh, is he good enough to start? Maybe, but just because he's good enough to start week one doesn't necessarily mean you just want to throw him out there week one and potentially open him up to being thrown in a bad situation. Because as much as some of these people who really, really, really want Shedeur to start right now are begging for him to start, let Shedeur go out there in the first 4 weeks, be thrown into situations he's just not ready for, and it look obvious that he's been thrown into a situation he's not ready for. The same people calling this malpractice on the coaching staff for not starting him already will be the same people demanding that Kevin Stefanski be fired for starting Shedeur Sanders too early. Like, tell me if I'm lying. I ain't. That's the truth. So what you want to do if you're the Browns is, if you really do think Shedeur has potential, we'll treat him like he has potential and don't just throw him out there. Make sure, be 112% sure he's ready to be out there when you have him out there. Hell, I'd rather be late than early. Ain't no reason to be early. I'd rather be late than early. Put him in a week too late. What's it going to do? You're not going to make the playoffs this year? Okay, that's fine. Better draft pick for next year. And then you get to roll into the season knowing Shedeur's the starter next year. There's no reason to rush this. I want people to be clear on that. I don't think there's a reason to rush this, and I think that's just being ignored.
I agree with you. You have to figure out if you don't have your quarterback of the future on the roster this season, which means that even if Joe Flacco starts the year, unless they stun the world and are winning a lot of games, you've got to make sure you know what you have in Dylan Gabriel, who you drafted, and Shedeur Sanders, and maybe to some degree Kenny Pickett. That has to be the plan in Cleveland, right?
The league's.
How long does that take, though? Like, everybody talks about, you got to know what you have in these guys before next year's draft. I don't think that is 100% true. I don't think you're ever going to be in a situation where you can just like play Shedeur Sanders 17 games and be like, oh, I know what he is. I think there's a great possibility that you could play Shedeur Sanders 17 games this year and still have no idea what he's going to be. Happens all the time. Like, sometimes quarterbacks play a full season and you know immediately, oh, that guy's going to be good, right? Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, C.J. Stroud. But oftentimes, quarterbacks get out there and those first 2 years are a quagmire. Tua Tagovailoa. What's his name? He just won. Jalen Hurts. I can't believe I was blanking on his name. Jalen Hurts, right? Took a little while for people to figure out whether he was good or not. Wasn't immediate at all. You know, some guys are immediate, some guys aren't. Shedeur is more likely going to be in a not immediate task. And the truth is, you can start him 17 games this year. You might not know. You might not know. You might not know well enough to stop yourself from taking a quarterback if that quarterback is one of the better prospects to come out in the last 2 years. I don't think there's much that Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel can do this season, and I think the Browns are aware of this, that would stop them from taking a quarterback if they were in love with the prospect in this year's draft class. A lot of the question of if the Browns are going to take a quarterback, in my opinion, has more to do about the 2026 college football season than it has to do about what happens in the 2026 Browns season. Barring we get a very rare outcome, which is like Shedeur plays to Jaden Daniels level, we're just not going to know. We're not going to know. And I think that's the fallacy that this conversation kind of operates under, is that there's a chance that we're going to definitively know what Shedeur Sanders is by week 17 if he starts all 17 games. There's a greater chance that we don't know after 17 games, or we're at the same place after 17 games that we would have been after 6. Like, it's going to take some time to figure it out. And the truth is, even if the Browns draft a quarterback next year, Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders are probably going to start games for the Cleveland Browns next year before that rookie even sees the field. Like, I don't see the need to rush this. I get why people want to, but the more potential you see in Shedeur, the less you should want to rush this. That's my personal opinion.
Spoke when he wasn't taken in the first round, but I don't think anybody expected him to go in the 5th round. That felt very personal to Shedeur. That said, I'm told that he came into minicamps, and I spoke to people this weekend, and was as good a young third-day pick you can imagine in how he handled himself. Now, you're asking him to find a way to not only get on this roster, which he will, but to then be able to get reps in training camp and then win the job. That's asking a lot. However, you're asking a quarterback room that doesn't have that. There is no Jared Goff or Matthew Stafford in there. It is wide open. If you're thinking the best man can win, he might have the most skills. It's just really hard as a day 3 pick to do that in June. He's going to have to do it in August.
You know, and listen, I'm wrong so often that I'm allowed to point out when I was right. The week after the draft, I said, just watch. The stories coming out of there are going to be, Browns pleasantly surprised with what they see from Shedeur. They have every reason in the world to want this to work. He has a 5 next to his name as a 5th-round pick, but he was at worst a 2nd-round talent. There's every reason in the world where they could come out of this looking like the same geniuses that San Francisco looks like for taking Brock Purdy where they did. There's nothing but upside for Cleveland in this.
Absolutely. And listen, if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I know what Joe Flacco is.
Right.
I pretty much know what Kenny Pickett is. He's been on like 3 teams in 3 years. I need to know what these other guys are. But he was drafted behind Dillon Gabriel for a reason by the organization. So listen, he's got to be methodical and trying to get up, trying to get up there and earn some playing time with the Cleveland Browns.
I think June does matter. I know.
All right. So again, I touched on it before. We're assuming that if he plays 17 games, we're going to know everything we need to know about him. Often, like, Baker Mayfield's a good example of this. We're like, Baker Mayfield was here for 4 years, and by the time he got to that 5th offseason in Cleveland, we still didn't know what to do with him. Like, there was still a great deal of debate about what Baker Mayfield was, and he had started pretty much 4 years in a row for the Cleveland Browns. And even at that point, there was a debate about what to do with him. We are grossly underestimating how long it takes to really know if you got a quarterback most of the time. 17 games ain't going to be enough, right? We think it's enough right now because in our minds, we're like, you're going to play 17 games and we going to know. We not. It's going to be split. There are going to be people who are like, hey, it's early. It's only his rookie year. He needs 3 more years. He needs 2 more years. It's going to take time to really know what Shedeur Sanders is. And I don't think the Browns are operating under the assumption that they're just going to know by the end of the year what these quarterbacks have to offer. Like, there might be a chance that if Shedeur Sanders wants to be the starting quarterback in Cleveland long-term, he might have to compete with a 1st-round pick next year and beat that player in a competition. And then maybe by the end of year 2, year 3, we know, and then we ship off the guy that we took in the 1st round. This is just going to be what it takes. Right? It's going to take a while. So operating in year 1 as if we just need all of these games to know what to do with him, it took us 3 years to figure out Deshaun Watson wasn't good. Like, that's how long it took the Cleveland Browns to be like, all right, it's over. 3 years. It's not going to be as simple as some people are making it out to be. I don't think it's as simple as let these guys play. We're going to know. Because if we're talking about Dillon Gabriel, let's say they split. Dillon plays 6 starts and Shedeur plays the rest. That's not enough time, especially with Shedeur. Dillon, you can make the argument. There are so many things going against his projection to the NFL that if it's not there immediately, you can make the determination pretty quickly. because he's undersized. He's also short. And athletically, is he athletic enough to translate to the NFL? Is the size going to be a problem? If he goes out there, the size looks like an issue. The athleticism looks like an issue. Okay, you can make a quick determination on a dude like Dylan. Shedeur's a bit of a different beast, where he doesn't have anything physically about him that makes you go, he can't be an NFL quarterback with that. There's nothing about him that makes you feel that way. So all of this is now about hey, what can you project? And that's going to take more time to determine than just 17 games. That's the truth of it. I know people are going to be in the comment section swearing that you could just tell the case with the quarterback after 17 games. But again, I would like to remind y'all, we spent 4 years debating in Cleveland, 5 off seasons, whether Baker Mayfield was good or not. He was a number 1 overall pick. And he had 1 season where he went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. And we spent 4 years debating whether that guy was good or not. Not because the debates were unwarranted. They were. And that's the thing. It just takes that long. Sometimes. Oftentimes. Jared Goff didn't become a respected quarterback until he went to Detroit and started playing good 2 years into being the starter in Detroit. It's not going to be fast. So why rush? If you're the Cleveland Browns and you see potential in Shedeur Sanders, all right, put him in the best possible position to succeed and see how he responds and move forward from there. But don't rush it. You ain't going to benefit nothing from rushing it other than asking if you did the right things to put him in a position to succeed. Let's learn from our mistakes.
It's August. He has to go do it. Mm-hmm. But again, the chatter, at least a lot of the reports are that it's this. So can he do it in a mini camp when probably going to get more veterans in this situation, probably have more opportunities to maybe run the number 2 offense versus the number 1 defense? So all you're trying to do is get yourself into that setting where you force the conversation to be had around a table like this, being like, hey, how do we want to change the way we were going to go about this in August? Do we want to give him more reps in a preseason game 1 with our starters?
I've been waiting for several weeks now to get you back in here so I can ask you this question. There are some quarterbacks who they have these talents that just jump off the page, right? If he's got a cannon for an arm or if he can run like Lamar Jackson or whatever, I can see where that would be easy to identify in any setting.
Yes.
Shedeur Sanders' superpowers are the opposite of that, right? They're all the things that actually make quarterbacks good. They're processing and reading the defense and all that. I'm asking you, my quarterback, does that stuff become obvious in training camp scenarios?
Fast.
They'll see that fast?
Fast.
Then he's going to look great quickly.
And let me say this. If this offense is going under Kevin Stefanski, at least rumors to what it was a couple years ago, he's perfect for it. Because he's perfect for the under center, play action, control the line of scrimmage, see the defense, get from 1 to 2 to 3 quickly, or 1 to 2 to 3, he's got to do it more quickly. But he's custom made for that. But the way that he thinks and the way that he can see something on the board, take it to a walkthrough, and then bring it to a practice, that's
how you win.
I also think the things that affected his draft stock, which might have been the fact he's never played for a head coach other than his father, the fact that he didn't have an agent, the fact that he didn't do any of the pre-draft workouts or attend the combine in a way where he's going to compete, none of that matters now. That's all. He got burned for all that, and he got stung, and he ate that for at least a weekend where he's getting prank called, and he's the story, and everyone's either making him a villain or a victim. It's all done now. You are an NFL player. It's all upside. None of that stuff matters.
Finish it up.
I do agree with Dan's point there. I think Shedeur is a decent fit for the Browns offense in the way that they want to operate. He's a very accurate second level thrower. And I think here's what I think will separate Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel. The Browns sometimes have this way of trying to convince themselves that they want a quarterback to do one thing, but then you look at how the offense operates and you're like, you want your quarterback to do this, right? And with the Browns, they tend to convince themselves, especially Kevin Stefanski, that he wants a super safe quarterback, right? And he that's what he swears he wants. But I don't think that's the truth. I think in order for the Browns quarterback offense to operate, they need to have a little bit of a risk taker in there, right? And I think what's going to separate Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders ultimately from Dillon Gabriel and Kenny Pickett is Shedeur is willing to make a tight window throw because he believes he can do it. Joe Flacco is willing to make a tight window throw because he believes he can do it. And they're willing to throw with anticipation into coverage, something that might not seem super safe, but they're going to bet on themselves. And that's going to make a world of a difference in that offense versus somebody like Kenny Pickett or Dillon Gabriel, who are going to default to the check down far too much. Far too much. When you default to the check down far too much, it looks like Deshaun Watson did last year in that offense. It looks like DTR did in that offense. It does not look good. This offense is not built for you to consistently take the check down. And that's why I don't think that these like super, I'm going to be ultra safe with the quarterback playing styles work. You look at the quarterbacks who had success in these offenses. These are guys who are known for taking a little bit of risk, right? I think the most safe quarterback is Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins still takes risk. Jacoby Brissett, Jameis Winston last year was the best quarterback. He was the most willing to take risk. Joe Flacco obviously willing to take a risk. And then I think Shedeur is going to have success here because he's willing to throw that backside dig when I don't think other guys are. So I agree with that. I think once they get to training camp and there's pads and actual 11-on-11s going on, I think that difference is going to start to show itself more stark. And we're going to talk about Dillon and Kenny being separated from Shedeur and Joe, because I think it's going to be obvious that Joe has no problem doing that, and he's going to have a lot of experience, so he's going to make some of those chunk plays. He might throw some interceptions here and there. Same thing's going to be true with Shedeur, but I think the willingness to make those throws is going to ultimately be much more productive in a preseason format and in a joint practice format for those quarterbacks than being super safe. And I think that will be the difference between these quarterbacks and why I just have a lot more faith in Joe Flacco and Shedeur providing you decent quarterback play than I do with the other two, who I think are just too conservative to be successful in this system. We'll see what happens during mini camps, training camp. I'm excited to watch it all go down. I just hope that if we start to see potential with Shedeur, we don't get so wrapped up that we don't give it enough time to blossom the way it needs to blossom, right? Because I think we might have been dealt a gem here with Shedeur being a 5th-round pick. I had this guy as a first-round grade, late first-round grade, but first-round grade. I thought he would have been fine in the 2nd round, and you got him in the 5th. I think he got dealt a gem there. But I also want you to take care of it, right? And not be reckless and not just throw him out there. I want you to just confirm things bit by bit, and when the time is right, put them out there. And I'm seeing a lot of rush energy, and I hope that doesn't turn into just throw them out there. I hope the Browns are better than that, and I think that's what Kevin's here for, is to be better than that. So y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.